Kristen, and today we are going to be breaking down the new Netflix show, The Haunting of Hill House. I'll tell you now, there are definitely going to be some spoilers in this video, so continue at your own risk. The Haunting of Hill House is adapted from the 1959 Gothic horror novel of the same name by Shirley Jackson. And I think for this TV show, they definitely take a lot of liberties with the story, but I think what they give us in return is something that is truly haunting. What I think is really unique about the story is that it's not just a typical haunted house tale. No, we're not figuring out the origin of how the house got haunted. We're not trying to break some type of curse. The real focus is on the family that we are following and seeing the mysteries and ghosts that they have within themselves. So not only are we following this like really incredibly detailed, well thought out ghost story, but we're also in a family drama. You know, all of these people have built up walls within themselves thinking that it's going to protect them, and really it hurts them and it tears them apart from each other. So we followed the Crane family. It's a mother, a father, and their 5 kids, and we're kind of going back and forth in the timeline. We're in 1992, where we're seeing them flip this mansion called Hill House, and we also see them in their modern day, present day, a lot older. Back in 1992, there were all these strange occurrences that go on that ultimately lead to their mother's death, and that really haunts the family. And years later, even though they're not at Hill House anymore, it still continues to haunt them, and it really has made the family's relationship very strained. They're ultimately brought back together by an unexpected tragedy when their youngest sister, Nell, is found dead at Hill House, and now they have to join forces to ensure that the house doesn't try to claim them as well. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the casting. I think they did a really solid job of casting the show. They had 2 different casts, I would say. There was like the younger cast of 1992 and then the older cast that was more modern, present day, but they were playing the same characters, and I just thought they did a really great job of finding really incredible actors, especially the young kids. I thought they did a really great job, and also of just finding people that actually really looked like siblings. They all looked like they could really be related to Carla Gugino, who played their mom. It was just really spot on casting. The show is about family. It's about these 5 siblings, and you really got a chance to see each of them shine and learn about each of them throughout the episodes, and one of my personal favorites had to be episode 5, which I will get into as we continue on. Additionally, everything in The Haunting of Hill House is just done so purposefully. There's a meaning behind everything. There's so much detail in the scenes, in everything the family experiences. From the hidden ghosts that you can see in the background of nearly every scene, to that moment when all of the siblings wake up clutching their throats at the same time, which is the exact moment that Nell died, to finally learning the truth about the Red Room. Everything was just woven together so perfectly. The way they did time in this show was very interesting too. You know, we're in 1992, then we're in modern day. We might see a scene, and then later on in another episode we'll come back to that same scene but see it from someone else's perspective and kind of get a little bit more insight into what was going on. Some things from the present even made their way into the past somehow, which was really interesting to see. I give major kudos to director Mike Flanagan. That guy is just a genius. The way he put this show together, wow. There were also some really incredible one-shot scenes that went on that, you know, obviously that is very difficult. That's a lot of meticulous work, and they just did it so well. I would just say all around incredible job with the direction. So as I mentioned, one of my favorite episodes had to be episode 5, the Bent Neck Lady episode. It was just so brilliant. I was not expecting it at all. So throughout Nell's childhood, and even as an adult, she's been haunted by this bent neck lady. She returns to Hill House as a way to kind of confront her fears and kind of take away the power that this house has on her in her head. It turns out, you know, that's not really the case when you're dealing with a haunted house. There, she's swept up in this magical vision of reuniting with her family and with her late mother and with her late husband, and honestly, it was really beautiful. The juxtaposition of seeing like these beautiful moments of her with her loved ones and then like seeing that she's really alone in this decrepit, creepy old house was just like insane. It just was so like heart-wrenching to see, and then she's ultimately tricked by the house into killing herself and now is forced to stay there permanently. Nell learns that she actually is the one who is the bent neck lady. How insane is that? It's like full circle, mind blown. Like, what a horrific genius would think this up. I was in shock. It was like this crazy catch-22. It really showed how insane the timeline is there, that like she could die in the future and then somehow be haunting herself in the past, but like accidentally. And I was just like, completely blown away. What's also interesting here is the fact that like the house is claiming her. If you've lived in this house wants you. It wants you to come back and stay. And that's what I think this house is trying to do throughout the whole season, is scare them in their real lives into somehow coming back to Hill House so that they could stay in the house forever. You know, it feeds off the people in it, and that leads me to the Red Room. You know, I think another important aspect and theme of this show is the idea of home. They kind of give some human-like qualities to the idea of a home, you know, like the walls are the skin, the pipes are the bones, and they serve as a way to protect you and keep you safe. The Red Room in this case, it seems like it's the heart of the home, but really it's the stomach trying to digest its victims without them even realizing. You know, they spent so much time trying to find keys to open this red door to get into this room, and it turns out that they'd actually been in the room numerous times, they just didn't know it. The room would transform itself to be whatever it needed to be to, you know, manipulate and make the family feel comfortable and safe when really the house is extremely dangerous. It was Luke's treehouse, it was Olivia's reading room, whatever it needed to be in order to keep them there, to consume them. Speaking of Olivia, you know, it's mostly the children who are realizing that there's something weird going on in this house, but Olivia ends up falling victim to the visions as well. The house starts feeding off of her energy and wanting to protect her family and keep them safe, and warps that and turns that into something very horrific. It manipulates her and makes it so that she nearly kills her kids trying to keep them in the house, protect them, make sure they don't go out into the real world and have bad things happen to them. But the realities are, if you don't go out into the world, good things won't happen to you either. One thing that I do wish that they had explored more were the abilities that the Crane women seem to have. Olivia called it being sensitive, but you know, Theo had the ability to touch things and get feelings and visions, and you get to see her use those abilities in different ways, and that was really interesting. Olivia got these headaches and saw visions of the future, and even saw some things that involved a future Nell and Luke that mostly happened. They also claimed that Shirley had like prophetic dreams, but they didn't really dive into that one. I would have loved to see more of that, because it seems like in addition to being in this haunted house, the Cranes also had some abilities of their own, which I thought is really cool. Finally, I want to get into the finale of The Haunting of Hill House. I think if you take a look at first glance, it looks like, you know, we have this happy ending. But if you dig a little deeper, I don't know, it's kind of still a little bit sketchy. I think the house kind of wins in the end. It gets exactly what it wants. The house is still standing, it continues to devour people. Carla and Hugh both give themselves over to the house, and now they get to be with their loved ones forever. So the house is sort of a blessing and a curse in that way. Now, what about a season 2? Do you think we could get one? I think that if they did decide to continue, there are a lot of different directions they could go in. For instance, the house hasn't claimed the rest of the Crane children. So will we see it go after them so that the whole family can be together? What about going back and figuring out the origins of the house? That could be interesting. You know, we know that the house was owned by the Hills, but even they were claimed by the house. So what was the cause of the evil? Where did it all start? Or if this story's over, could we possibly get an anthology and follow a whole new group of people in Hill House? And if that's the case, maybe we'd even get to see some of the characters and ghosts from this past season make a comeback. Overall, I really enjoyed The Haunting of Hill House. I recommend it to anyone who enjoys suspenseful, well-crafted stories, especially ones that revolve around, you know, a family element. I think this show is rooted kind of in that idea of like family and what happens when your kids go off into the real world, and can you protect them, and that is a real, you know, fear that people go through, and it kind of takes that story and twists it on its head and makes it just really terrifying. I just thought it was really beautifully done, and I think honestly we could talk about it forever and ever and ever. So instead, why don't we hop in the comments and talk about it there? I would love to know what you guys thought about The Haunting of Hill House. Have you watched it? Are you gonna check it out? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click that subscribe button because I come out with new videos every week. See ya!